Daredevil is currently on his 4th season on Marvel live-action television, and he's currently one of my absolute favorite characters from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Given his welcome back home with the new Born Again show, I wanted to talk about Marvel's original plans with the character. Full-blown spoilers for Daredevil seasons 1 through 3, the Born Again show, and surprisingly, the Elektra movie from 2005. I'll explain that later. For those of you who don't know, Marvel was going through some really hard times and sold off the film rights to many of their characters to different companies. Of these characters included the X-Men, Spider-Man, and Daredevil. There were some other characters out there too, and I'm sure you've probably heard about them. But today we're focusing on Daredevil. The film rights of Daredevil reverted back to Marvel in 2012, and almost immediately when that happened, a new film idea was pitched to have it to be R-rated. Thing is though, Marvel was not interested in making R-rated movies at the time, and they further realized that Matt Murdock wasn't someone who was saving the world or stopping spaceships from crashing into nearby cities. He was just there to keep his corner clean. The developers ultimately decided to make it a TV show because the scale of an ideal Daredevil story was only around $25 million, not the grand $200 million Marvel loved pushing out. I've sung high praises of those first 3 seasons already, and I could keep going about them. But I haven't talked about the things that were scrapped from the original show or things that were kind of unnoticed or discontinued. The showrunner of the first season of Daredevil took to social media to answer some questions fans had about the show's development. So shout out to Steven DeKnight for taking time out of his days to giving insights behind the scenes. This video was honestly inspired by him. In season 1, the showrunner slightly tinted Charlie Cox's hair, the actor for Daredevil, so that it would just have a tinge of red hue when the light struck it. This was to match Matt Murdock's typical ginger red hair from the comics. They didn't proceed any further in dyeing his hair full orange red, as it would have been too hard on Charlie's hair and way too difficult to maintain. After season 1, it looks like they stopped tinting his hair red, most likely due to maintenance and the change in showrunners. And originally, his mask was designed without a nose guard to more closely resemble him from his comic design. I remember noticing this way back when I made my season 2 review. God, what was it, 9 years ago now? But the designers thought it ruined the secret identity aspect of the character. They could easily tell that it was Charlie Cox under the mask, and they thought everyone in the established world would think so too, given the realistic take they were doing. This was abandoned early on in development. Comparing it to, characters of John Walker or Captain America, it makes sense, those guys didn't really have secret identities. Given Matt's acrobatic nature, a more fabric-styled suit was thought of at first, something akin to Spider-Man's suit, but they opted to go for a more armored version to further solidify the more grounded, realistic take. I feel like The Dark Knight had an influence on this. That's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just that superheroes after that point started taking on more militaristic looks. Many superheroes got more armored appearances in the name of realism. Steven also clarified that selling something as grounded helped with the budget as well, simply aligning their goals and intentions with what they were capable of making. The first 3 seasons of the Netflix show didn't have as high of a budget as the Born Again show in Disney+, hence why we see very limited skyscraper jumping and building hopping in those seasons, something Daredevil is known to do. I remember playing Lego Marvel, and he was swinging around like Spider-Man with his billy club. I think I saw that in some cartoons too. That thing is long. Steven went on to say that they originally discussed showing that the kids, when Matt was younger, called him Daredevil all the time when he was growing up. But they deviated away from that and went with the Devils of Hell's Kitchen nickname to focus more on the father-son relationship of Jack and Matt. His reasoning was that being called Daredevil by the other kids growing up would have spent a lot of screen time with younger Matt and the other kids his age, and they didn't really want to get too invested in that for the storytelling. At its core, the Netflix show is about Matt and his personal relationships with his family and friends. It wouldn't really make sense if we got too much screen time from Jimbo when he was 2 or Luke when he was 6. The yellow and red suit seen in the She-Hulk show was actually considered to be the final suit in season 1. His yellow and red suit was actually his debut costume in the comics. This is what he looked like in his first issue. But trying to establish a more impactful, earned feeling, the developers opted to just give him the iconic red suit. Speaking of which, that final costume that Matt sort of earns at the end of the first season was met with a bit of mixed reception. The costume symbolized so much growth and significance in Matt's life due to the events that led up to him finally wearing the suit for the first time, and the lead designer explained that they really wanted to show how much closer to home Daredevil was than the other heroes. The use of rivets and architectural shapes in Daredevil's first red costume served to make the costume symbolize the busy streets and structures of New York. The costume designer called it, quote, quintessentially New York and how the city itself is constructed. I did kind of have a feeling that the suit was a bit busy, but seeing that it was intentional in this way puts a whole new perspective on everything. The suit was meant to look like a Kevlar vest, with the black sections made to pay homage to comic panels where artists rim-lighted certain areas in red, with center portions left black to emulate shadows. I am getting a newfound appreciation for the Season 1 red costume after hearing this. Even so, when we first saw the costume, many others, and myself included, thought that the Season 1 red suit was a bit too busy with too much going on. So for Season 2 and onwards, the suit became more streamlined and more simplified, with less materials being used so that it would be easier on the eyes. The Stone character teased at the end of Season 1, Episode 7 was originally meant to tie into the plot of the Defenders, but it kinda just fell to the wayside and we never saw Stone again. He was supposed to be part of the group called The Chase, which was destroyed in the Defenders show. Hey, fun fact, did you know Bob Sapp's character from the 2005 Elektra movie is supposed to be Stone too? Who would have thought? Season 3 was surprisingly cancelled at the peak and height of the show's popularity just a month after its release in 2018, leaving many people kinda confused and honestly kind of angry at the decision. Only later for the show to be picked up back again by Disney Plus in a sort of soft reboot fashion. The only returning cast members were going to be just Charlie Cox as Daredevil and Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin. Bullseye, Karen, Foggy were all going to be no-shows. The Punisher was going to play a part, but John Bernthal refused to show up due to him not agreeing with what they were doing with Frank in the show. Foggy supposedly died off-screen in that first cut of the show. They even went so far as to recast Vanessa publicly, to which everyone gladly let Marvel know what they thought of that. Suddenly, it became very clear why the show was halted at what seemed to be its peak. Disney Plus was coming out, and they wanted all of the Marvel shows they could gather onto its streaming service, which means they had to stop production on the Netflix show so that the Netflix Daredevil license can expire, and then they could bring the beloved characters onto their platform. Thing is though, they were writing a story not meant to be meshed with the original Netflix storyline. They wholeheartedly took in Charlie and Vincent to carry on the legacy, but wanted to cut everyone else off. They wanted to wave around the banner of the previous show's success, but at the same time did not want to be weighed down by the universe that was established by Netflix, like the mixed reception of the Defenders or Finn Jones as Iron Fist. They wanted to leave the door open to possibly recast people that didn't work, or redo storylines they thought they could do better. The original cancelled 4th season would have been centered around Typhoid Mary, a character from the Iron Fist show, which, I'm gonna be honest with you, I have not seen past Season 1. And Daredevil Season 5 would have been about Bullseye coming back after recovering from his injuries from Season 3. Did y'all know Typhoid Mary was also in the Elektra movie too? She was this girl. This video is actually making me rewatch Elektra, it's insane. Eventually, after looking back at the footage they shot and listening to the backlash made from the fans and other cast members, we got the Daredevil Born Again show we know today. The original cast members show up for a bit, but they sandwich the originally shot show, all filled with new supporting cast members. I'm curious to see what they have in store for Daredevil and if they're ever going to use him again in the movies. We saw him just once in No Way Home, but he didn't really do any daredeviling. And it's really fascinating to see where they began and what was initially dropped from early concepts and development, or even looking at things that just flew under my radar. I'm curious if any of that will make a return or if any of the other Defender characters will come back at all. I'm still clamoring for him to show up in Marvel Rivals. What do you think of Born Again? Also, what do you think his quote will be when he ults in Marvel Rivals? I was thinking it would be Born Again, or Judge, Jury, Executioner, but both of those were already taken.